Have you ever done everything right and still ended up with a gun pointed at your chest? That's where the story goes. But it starts with a feeling I hadn't had in a long, long time. The feeling of being home. I'd been back in Oak Creek, Alabama for all of 3 days. Just a handful of hours between me and a 9-month tour overseas. My uniform still had that faint smell of the desert on it. My first stop, the only stop that ever matters, was my mom's house. Mama Rose gives you the kind of hug that makes you forget the world can be a hard place. We just sat on her porch that evening, watching the neighborhood kids race their bikes. And for the first time in almost a year, I could just breathe. The next morning, I put on my uniform. It's just what I do. It feels right. It's how people around here know me. Sergeant Thorne. It gives the local kids someone to look up to, and I'm okay with that. Around 10:30, I was driving my mom's old Ford sedan down River Road to Miller's Corner Stop. It's a little store I've been going to since I was a boy. The bell on the door jingled, same as it always did. I grabbed a bottle of water, some gum, and one of those soft ice cream sandwiches from the freezer. A little taste of being a kid again. Mr. Miller was behind the counter, same as always. "Didn't expect you back so soon, son," he said with a warm smile. "Got out early for good behavior?" I joked, tapping my uniform. "Besides, someone's got to make sure you're treating my mom right." He chuckled. "You know she's in here every other day for scratch-offs and that sweet tea of hers. Swears it cures her headaches." I just laughed and shook my head. Walking out, the heavy Alabama heat felt familiar, comfortable. It should have been a perfectly ordinary moment, but then I saw her. Across the street, a woman stood half hidden by a trash bin, holding a phone low by her side. Her eyes were narrowed, her mouth a thin, tight line. There was no curiosity in her gaze, just something hard. I figured it was nothing. Maybe she was just having a bad day. I had no idea her fingers were dialing 911. You learn overseas that a quiet street doesn't always mean it's safe. Sometimes it's just the calm before everything breaks loose. I'd barely shut my car door when the world exploded in red and blue lights. They flashed in my rearview mirror, sharp and violent, a police cruiser, then another. They weren't passing me by. They were stopping, right on my bumper. I froze. My hands were on the steering wheel, open and still. The ice cream sandwich I'd been looking forward to was already melting in the cup holder. In the mirror, I saw 2 officers get out. One had his hand resting on his gun, like it was a part of him. My training, both from my dad and the Army, took over. Don't make sudden moves. Keep your hands where they can see them. The taller officer walked up to my window. He didn't ask for my license. He didn't ask what was going on. "Step out of the vehicle," he barked. I frowned, confused. "Sir, is there a problem? Step out. Now." There was no room for discussion in his voice. Slowly, I opened the door, raising my hands just enough so he could see them. This was my home. But in that second, it felt like the most dangerous place on earth. My military ID was clipped in plain sight on my uniform. "I'm Sergeant Marcus Thorne," I said, keeping my voice steady. "U.S. Army. I just got back from overseas." The shorter officer glanced at the ID but didn't say a word. The taller one, Keen, just stared at me. "We got a report," he snapped. "Man matching your description, acting aggressive." Aggressive? I couldn't help but repeat the word. I bought a bottle of water and an ice cream sandwich. Before I could say more, something cold and metallic clamped onto my wrist. Click, then the other. Click. I was in handcuffs. Just like that. Across the street, the woman who made the call just stood there, arms folded, her phone still pointed at me. A few people from the neighborhood started to gather. One of them was Leo, a good kid who works at the tire shop down the road. He had his phone out, and his hands were shaking. "Hey, that's Sergeant Thorne!" Leo yelled from the sidewalk. "What are y'all doing? He didn't do anything." The officers ignored him. I just stood there, breathing slow, thinking. Fighting this was not the answer. That would only make it worse. So I said it again, a little louder this time. "My name is Sergeant Marcus Thorne. I just returned from deployment. My commanding officer is Colonel Evans at Fort Benning. If you call him, he will tell you exactly who I am." Officer Keene scoffed. "We'll sort it out at the station." But Leo stepped a little closer to the curb. "No, this isn't right," he said, already dialing. He was calling the only person he could think of who might actually be able to do something. And what nobody on that street knew was that Colonel Evans was already on base, sitting in his office, and about to get a call that would change everything. He was in the middle of a video conference when his personal cell lit up, an unknown number from the local area code. He answered, expecting nothing. "Hello, Colonel Evans? This is Leo. I live near Sergeant Thorne. The police are handcuffing him right now outside Miller's corner stop. He's in uniform. He hasn't done a thing, sir. They aren't listening to him. Colonel Evans sat bolt upright in his chair. Did you say Thorne? Yes, sir. He told them to call you. Send me the address, now. The call ended. The colonel stood, his face set like stone. He looked at the young officer in his office. Get me the desk at Oak Creek PD. Tell them Colonel Evans needs to speak with whoever is detaining one of my soldiers. Immediately. Back on the street, I was still in cuffs. They hadn't read me my rights. They hadn't told me what crime I'd supposedly committed. Now a half-dozen phones were pointed at us, all recording. The woman who started it all? She had vanished, slipped away like she was never there. Leo was standing firm on the sidewalk. I called his colonel, he said, loud enough for the cops to hear. He's calling you right now. Officer Keene just sneered. Kid, you need to back off. No, Leo said, not flinching. You need to take those cuffs off him. That's when the radio on the shorter officer's shoulder crackled to life. Car 7, stand by. Receiving a priority call from Fort Benning. Colonel Evans is on the line for you. Both officers froze. Keene's smug look evaporated. He took a step away and keyed his radio. This is Car 7. Copy that. Patch him through. A few seconds of static and then a voice cut through the air. It was calm, controlled, and sharp as glass. This is Colonel Evans. Who am I speaking with? Officer Keene hesitated for a beat. Officer Keene, Oak Creek PD. The colonel's voice didn't get louder, but it felt heavier. Officer Keene, you are currently detaining Sergeant Marcus Thorne, a soldier under my direct command. He is not a criminal, he is not a suspect, and he is not under any investigation. He is a decorated soldier who returned from active duty less than 72 hours ago. Unless you have probable cause for a specific crime, I suggest you remove those handcuffs immediately. A long, heavy silence hung in the humid air. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic. The radio was silent for a moment, but it felt like an hour. Finally, Officer Keene spoke. Sir, we received a call about— I don't care what you heard, Colonel Evans cut him off, his voice ice. I care about what you know. Do you know that man? Other than what someone told you on the phone? No, sir. Then let him go. I'll be there in 15 minutes. If he's still in cuffs when I arrive, I will personally call Internal Affairs, your chief of police, and the mayor's office. Are we clear? The radio went dead silent. Yes, sir, Keene finally mumbled. The line clicked off. He turned to me but couldn't meet my eyes. The other officer fumbled with the key for the cuffs. Click, click. They were off. I didn't say a word, just rubbed my wrist watching him. Everyone was watching him. Every phone was still recording. No apology was offered, but the silence said more than words ever could. Less than 10 minutes later, a black government car pulled up fast, parking half on the curb. Colonel Evans stepped out in his full-dress uniform, ribbons on his chest, the gleaming eagle on his cap catching the sun. He didn't slam the door, but his presence hit the street like a thunderclap. The two officers, Keene and his partner, stiffened up, trying to look professional, but their eyes were fixed on the ground. Sergeant Thorne, the colonel said with a sharp nod. Sir, I replied, didn't expect to see you today. Colonel Evans turned his attention to the officers. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the air. Which one of you put him in cuffs? Keene swallowed hard. That was me, sir, based on a civilian report. Was he armed? No, sir. Was he threatening anyone? No, sir. Was he resisting? Keene just shook his head. No, sir. So explain it to me, officer. What exactly made you decide that a man in a U.S. Army uniform, who identified himself and posed no threat, needed to be handcuffed on the side of the road? The question just hung there. Keene shifted on his feet. It was a mistake, sir. No, the colonel snapped back. A mistake is a typo on a report. This was a decision you made based on a phone call and a feeling, not on facts. This whole neighborhood just watched you arrest a soldier who serves his country for doing nothing more than buying a drink at his hometown store. Leo stepped forward then. Sir, I got the whole thing on video. It's already online. People are sharing it everywhere. Colonel Evans looked at the young man and gave a single, firm nod. Good. Keep it there. He turned back to me and put a hand on my shoulder. You all right? I managed a small smile. Yeah, just surprised. I wish I could say I was, he said, just as a plainclothes officer pulled up in an unmarked car. He was clearly higher up the food chain. Colonel, he said, approaching them, I'm Deputy Chief Miles. I've seen the footage. I'm sure you have, Evans replied. And you're going to want to get out in front of this before it becomes a national story. Because in about 30 minutes, every news channel is going to have that video and your phones are going to melt. I suggest you handle it. The deputy chief looked pale. We're starting an internal review. Both officers will be on administrative leave, effective immediately. Not good enough, the colonel said flatly. You need to hold a press conference. Today, tell the public what happened and what you're doing to make sure it never happens again. Full transparency. Yes, sir, Miles said, already turning away and pulling out his phone. I finally let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Didn't think I'd get all this just for buying a snack. The colonel looked at me, a flicker of a smile on his face. This country asks a lot of us, Sergeant. The least we can expect is to be treated with respect when we come home. But sometimes, he said, glancing at Leo and the other neighbors still watching, respect has to be demanded. Not with fists, but with evidence. With voices that refuse to be ignored. By the time the evening news came on, the story was already everywhere. The video told the truth in a way no official report ever could, spreading like wildfire across the internet. It wasn't just a local incident anymore. It was a headline. Decorated soldier wrongfully detained in his hometown. The video didn't just go viral, it exploded. The Oak Creek Police Department's phones didn't just ring, they screamed with outrage from across the country. Veterans, community leaders, ordinary people, they all demanded answers. The pressure was immense. The next morning, Mayor Thompson stood in front of City Hall and faced the cameras. She didn't mince words. This was more than a mistake, she said, her voice firm. It was a failure of judgment, of training, and of basic human decency. Sergeant Marcus Thorne served our country with honor, and he was treated like a criminal because of how he looked, not because of what he did. As of this morning, both officers involved have been terminated. I watched it from my mom's kitchen, a fork full of eggs halfway to my mouth. Terminated, I said quietly. I hadn't wanted that. I just wanted to be left alone. Mama Rose looked at me from across the table. Baby, you think you're the first good man this kind of trouble has found? You didn't ask for this, but maybe, she said, it needed to happen. Later that day, Deputy Chief Miles came to the house. No uniform, no badge. He told me the department had a new reform program, bias training, de-escalation, that had been stuck in political limbo for months. After the video, it wasn't stuck anymore. He handed me a folder. We want you to be a part of it, he said. Help us train our officers. Use your voice. I looked at the folder, then back at him. I'll think about it, I said, and took it. A few days later, a new video started making the rounds. This one wasn't about a confrontation. It was about a conversation. It was from a town hall meeting, with me at a podium, speaking to a room full of residents and police officers. My uniform didn't save me, I said to the crowd. It just made the situation harder for people to deny. What saved me was a phone, a video, a voice, someone who saw something wrong and chose not to stay quiet. When a reporter asked why I agreed to help the city's reform efforts, my answer was simple. Because I've seen what silence costs. That clip got shared for a different reason. Not for the drama, but for the honesty. The night before I was due back on base, I sat on the porch with Mama Rose. The air was quiet. You know, she said, you showed them something important. You showed them what quiet strength looks like. You didn't yell, you didn't fight, you just stood your ground. I looked out at the dark, peaceful street. I never wanted to be the story, Mama. She put her hand on mine. You didn't have a choice, she said softly, but you made it count. A car drove past and the driver waved. I waved back. No cameras, no flashing lights, just a moment of peace. The loudest statement isn't always a shout. Sometimes it's the quiet refusal to break when the world is trying to crush you.